Introduction. What separates the top 1% of people from the rest of the world? Is it luck, talent, money, or intelligence? While those factors can play a role, there's one element that consistently stands out above all others: the ability, and more importantly, the habit of educating oneself daily. We live in a time of unprecedented access to knowledge. With a smartphone, an internet connection, and the right mindset, you can learn almost anything from anywhere in the world. The answers are at your fingertips. Yet despite this open buffet of opportunity, most people stagnate. They settle into routines, absorb entertainment instead of education, and wait for change instead of creating it. This audiobook is not for those kinds of people. This audiobook is for the few who want more from life, for those who sense that they're capable of greatness but need a system, a mindset, and a strategy to tap into it. It's for those who want to rise above mediocrity and live with clarity, purpose, and power. It's for the ambitious, the curious, the hungry. In an age of distractions, those who can focus, learn, and adapt daily have an edge that compounds over time. The world is changing rapidly. Industries are evolving. Job markets are shifting. Technology is rewriting the rules every few years. Formal education can't keep up. College degrees become outdated. Credentials fade in relevance. But self-education, that's timeless. It's flexible. It's personal. It's exponential. Imagine what your life would look like if you learned something valuable every single day throughout the year. Now imagine 5 years. The gap between who you are and who you could become would stretch wide enough to create a different reality entirely, a different income level, a different mindset, different relationships, and a different level of influence. Self-education is simple in concept, but difficult in practice. It requires discipline, consistency, and a shift in identity. If you're looking for shortcuts or hacks that promise success without effort, this book is not for you. Growth is uncomfortable. Elevating yourself daily means confronting your limitations, outgrowing your environment, and making choices that others won't understand. But if you're ready to step into that discomfort, if you're ready to become the kind of person who leads, creates, and thrives in a rapidly changing world, then keep listening. What follows is a roadmap, not just to stay ahead of 99% of people, but to become someone truly exceptional. Chapter 1. The Mindset of Lifelong Learning. In this new age, knowledge is not just power. It is capital, leverage, and often the ultimate differentiator between success and irrelevance. Unlike the industrial economy, which relied heavily on physical labor and material resources, the information economy is driven by intangible assets, ideas, data, innovation, and intellectual property. Understanding how knowledge compounds in the digital age is essential for anyone hoping to thrive in a rapidly evolving world. In a traditional economy, the value of a resource often diminished with use. Machinery wears down, raw materials are consumed, and physical labor has limits. Knowledge, on the other hand, is an infinitely renewable resource. When used, it doesn't deplete, it grows. Sharing an idea doesn't mean losing it. In fact, sharing often leads to its improvement. This is the essence of compounding knowledge. Every new insight builds on the foundation of previous learning, creating exponential growth over time. Digital technologies have amplified this effect dramatically. With access to vast amounts of information at our fingertips, learning is no longer confined to institutions or experts. Anyone with an internet connection can tap into lectures from top universities, read groundbreaking research, explore interactive simulations, or participate in online forums filled with practical insights and diverse perspectives. This democratization of information means that those who make a habit of daily learning can accelerate their understanding far beyond what was once possible in a single lifetime. The information economy rewards adaptability and continuous growth. In fields like technology, marketing, finance, and even healthcare, change is constant and rapid. What worked yesterday may be obsolete tomorrow. The only way to stay relevant is to continually evolve. Education is no longer a one-time event that ends with a diploma. It is a lifelong process. Those who fail to update their knowledge risk falling behind, while those who commit to daily education are better positioned to seize emerging opportunities and navigate complex challenges. The compounding nature of knowledge also creates a significant advantage in problem-solving and decision-making. Every new piece of information provides a broader context, enabling more informed judgments and the ability to connect dots that others may miss. Over time, this leads to better strategic thinking, more innovative ideas, and a deeper understanding of how systems interact. In professional and personal contexts alike, this edge can be the difference between mediocrity and mastery. Another powerful element of the information economy is its scalability. Knowledge, once acquired, can be applied in multiple domains and shared with large audiences at minimal cost. A person who learns to code can build tools that impact millions. Someone who understands financial literacy can create content that empowers others to take control of their economic futures. This scalability means that a single insight can multiply its value many times over, especially when combined with digital tools that amplify reach and efficiency. Educating yourself every day cultivates a mindset of curiosity and resilience. The practice of seeking new knowledge trains your brain to look for patterns, to question assumptions, and to explore alternatives. It builds mental agility, the ability to pivot, adapt, and think creatively under pressure. In a world that increasingly favors innovation over tradition, these qualities are indispensable. Self-education also fosters a greater sense of autonomy and empowerment. When you take ownership of your learning, you become less dependent on external authorities and more confident in your ability to chart your own path. This is particularly crucial in an age where career paths are less linear and where personal branding, side hustles, and entrepreneurial ventures are increasingly the norm. The more you know, the more options you have. The more you grow, the more agency you gain. The advantage of the information economy is not just in the access to knowledge, but in what you choose to do with it. The individuals who commit to learning something new every day harness the power of compounding intelligence. They become not just consumers of content, but creators of value. They build mental models that help them anticipate trends, influence others, and lead meaningful change. They understand that the greatest investment they can make is not in stocks or real estate, but in the expansion of their own mind. In the digital age, information is currency, and learning is the engine that generates wealth, influence, and freedom. Educating yourself every day is no longer optional. It's a strategic imperative. The gap between those who learn continuously and those who do not is widening with every passing day. And in that gap lies the difference between being overwhelmed by change and mastering it. Shifting from consumer to creator. Shifting from a consumer to a creator is one of the most transformative steps you can take in your journey of self-education and personal growth. In an age where information is readily available, the temptation to endlessly consume videos, podcasts, social media, news, books is both a blessing and a burden. While knowledge absorption is critical, the passive act of consumption can become a trap that stalls progress, reinforces inertia, and obscures the path to mastery. Passive consumption feels productive because it mimics the behaviors associated with learning. Watching a documentary, reading an insightful article, or listening to an expert panel can give the illusion that you're growing intellectually. In reality, without deliberate engagement and application, much of this information dissipates quickly. It's similar to reading about how to swim versus actually getting into the water. The latter demands presence, risk, and effort, elements that forge deeper understanding and resilience. Creating forces clarity. When you shift into a creative role, you engage your mind in a fundamentally different way. Instead of merely absorbing ideas, you are required to process, synthesize, and express them. Whether it's writing a blog post, drawing a concept map, recording a video essay, or teaching a subject to someone else, creation demands comprehension. It tests your grasp of the subject and reveals the gaps in your understanding. This process of producing output becomes the crucible through which true learning is forged. The act of creation also nurtures autonomy. Consumption often depends on curated content, algorithms, and external authorities deciding what you see and learn next. As a creator, you begin to take control of your intellectual direction. You ask questions, seek answers, and define the contours of your curiosity. This proactive stance empowers you to design your education rather than passively accept what's offered. Creativity invites repetition and iteration, two of the most essential principles in the learning process. When you create something, even if it's imperfect, you establish a feedback loop. You reflect on what worked, identify what didn't, and refine your approach in the next version. This cycle of trial, error, and refinement helps knowledge solidify and skills become second nature. It's a slow process, but deeply rewarding and transformative in its cumulative effect. Creating also enhances memory retention. Studies in cognitive science have shown that people retain far more when they are actively involved in generating content rather than simply reading or listening. This is due to what's known as the generation effect. Information that you generate yourself is more likely to be remembered than information you receive passively. By expressing ideas in your own words, drawing connections to other knowledge, or contextualizing new information within a personal narrative, you anchor it more deeply in your memory. Becoming a creator helps build confidence. The first steps might feel awkward. Your work might seem amateurish or clumsy, but with consistent effort, you begin to develop a voice and a sense of competence. The shift from being an observer to a participant instills a belief in your ability to shape the world and contribute something of value. This mindset carries over into other areas of life, transforming not just how you learn, but how you live. The world is filled with passive consumers, which makes creators rare and valuable. In professional settings, creators are the ones who bring new ideas, solve problems, and drive progress. They're seen not just as informed, but as insightful. In personal life, creators are those who leave a mark through art, writing, entrepreneurship, activism, or mentorship. They build, inspire, and elevate others. Shifting from consumer to creator is not about abandoning consumption entirely. It's about achieving a healthier balance. Consumption becomes more purposeful when it's in service of a creative goal. Instead of endlessly scrolling through articles or videos, you begin to seek knowledge with intent, to build something, to share insight, to teach, to innovate. In doing so, you elevate your learning from a passive habit to an active practice, one that enriches not only your own life, but potentially the lives of others. Fixed versus growth mindset. The contrast between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset is a cornerstone in understanding how individuals approach learning, self-improvement, and the belief in their own potential. At the heart of this dichotomy lies a powerful interplay between psychology and neuroscience, which together illuminate why some people seem to thrive in the face of challenge while others retreat, and how daily education, whether formal or self-directed, can shape not only knowledge but also the brain itself. A fixed mindset is the belief that abilities, intelligence, and talents are innate and unchangeable. People with this perspective often see effort as fruitless or even as a sign of inadequacy. Failure becomes a judgment on their inherent capability rather than a chance to grow. This mindset is often internalized early in life, sometimes as a result of well-meaning praise. "You're so smart," which unintentionally reinforces the idea that intelligence is static. When setbacks occur, individuals with a fixed mindset are more likely to give up, avoid challenges, or feel threatened by the success of others. In contrast, a growth mindset is the belief that abilities can be developed through dedication, hard work, and the right strategies. Neuroscience supports this concept by showing that the brain is remarkably plastic. It can reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. This neuroplasticity is particularly evident when individuals engage in deliberate practice or learn something new. Brain imaging studies have shown that effortful learning increases synaptic density, particularly in regions associated with memory and problem solving, and enhances overall cognitive function. The psychological foundation of the growth mindset is deeply tied to the work of psychologist Carol Dweck, who demonstrated through decades of research that how people perceive their abilities greatly affects their motivation, resilience, and achievement. Students who believe they can grow their intelligence tend to seek out more challenging tasks, persist longer, and ultimately perform better than those who believe their abilities are fixed. The belief in one's potential, then, is not just motivational fluff. It has tangible consequences on behavior and outcomes. Daily education plays a vital role in reinforcing a growth mindset. Every act of reading, reflecting, experimenting, or problem-solving signals to the brain that learning is valuable and possible. This continuous input helps build not just factual knowledge, but also cognitive agility, the ability to adapt, think critically, and solve complex problems. When a person commits to learning each day, even in small doses, they are effectively training their brain to be more flexible, more curious, and more resilient. Importantly, mindset is not a binary state, but a continuum. Most people exhibit both fixed and growth-oriented tendencies, depending on the context. The key is to become more aware of these tendencies and to consciously nurture a growth mindset, especially in areas where one feels limited or discouraged. Self-talk, reflection, and mindfulness can help identify and challenge fixed beliefs. For instance, reframing a thought from, "I'm not good at this" to, "I'm not good at this yet," can subtly shift perception and open the door to learning. The neuroscience behind motivation also intersects with mindset. Dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with reward, plays a crucial role in learning and goal-directed behavior. When individuals experience progress, however small, dopamine is released, reinforcing the behavior and increasing the likelihood of continued effort. This creates a feedback loop. Learning stimulates dopamine, which increases motivation, which leads to more learning. A growth mindset leverages this loop by focusing on effort and improvement rather than perfection or immediate success. On a broader scale, cultivating a growth mindset within oneself encourages a lifelong commitment to learning and adaptability, which are essential traits in an ever-changing world. In an age where information is abundant and accessible, the ability to teach oneself continuously becomes a superpower. The growth mindset becomes not just a personal advantage, but a societal imperative, enabling people to adapt to new technologies, shift careers, solve complex global issues, and collaborate across differences. The difference between a fixed and a growth mindset lies not just in belief, but in behavior. It's about how one responds to failure, how one approaches effort, and how one sees other success. Educating yourself daily is more than an intellectual pursuit. It is a deliberate act of shaping your brain, reinforcing your beliefs, and building the habits that lead to a fuller, more capable self. It's not simply about acquiring knowledge. It's about becoming someone who believes in the capacity to evolve. Mental models and decision-making. Mental models are the foundational frameworks through which individuals interpret the world, make decisions, and solve problems. For top performers, from elite athletes and CEOs to seasoned investors and creative professionals, mental models serve as cognitive shortcuts that enable rapid yet accurate decision-making in complex environments. These frameworks are not just about intelligence, but about structured thinking, clarity of perception, and continuous self-education. Educating oneself daily involves more than consuming information. It is about refining the lenses through which we see the world. Mental models offer precisely this. They simplify complexity, reduce cognitive load, and increase the probability of making effective choices. The most effective thinkers curate a mental toolbox, collections of models drawn from various disciplines including economics, physics, psychology, biology, and philosophy. The diversity of these models is crucial because relying on a single discipline can lead to blind spots. Top performers often think like polymaths, applying ideas from seemingly unrelated domains to gain deeper insight into challenges. One of the most powerful mental models is first principles thinking. Rather than reasoning by analogy, doing things a certain way simply because that's how it's always been done, first principles thinking breaks problems down to their fundamental truths. Elon Musk is a well-known proponent of this approach, often dismantling assumptions to rebuild better solutions from the ground up. This method leads to originality and innovation, not just incremental improvements. Another critical mental model is second-order thinking, the habit of considering the long-term consequences and ripple effects of actions. While most people focus only on the immediate result, second-order thinkers ask, and then what? This deeper analysis helps avoid unintended consequences and makes decisions more sustainable and strategic. In investing, this might involve not just looking at how a company performs today, but how industry trends and economic shifts will shape it 5 years from now. Inversion is a counterintuitive yet deeply powerful model that centers around solving problems by considering the opposite. Instead of asking, "How can I succeed?" you might ask, "How can I fail?" and then avoid those paths. This technique is famously used by Charlie Munger, who emphasizes that avoiding stupidity is often more important than seeking brilliance. By identifying obstacles or failure points first, you preemptively eliminate risk and clarify your path forward. Opportunity cost, a core concept in economics, is another model used daily by effective thinkers. It's not just about money, it's about time, focus, energy, and attention. Every decision to do something is a decision not to do something else. High performers understand that saying yes to low-impact tasks often means saying no to high-leverage opportunities. They view time as their most scarce resource and use this model to prioritize ruthlessly. Top performers also integrate probabilistic thinking into their daily decision-making. They understand that certainty is rare and that every decision involves a degree of uncertainty. By assigning probabilities to different outcomes, they can make decisions that are robust under varying conditions. This model encourages flexible thinking and reduces the paralysis that often accompanies uncertainty. In addition to individual models, the meta-model of map versus territory serves as a warning not to confuse representations of reality with reality itself. Mental models are simplifications. They are useful, but they are not the thing itself. Awareness of this helps prevent over-reliance on any single model and keeps one open to new information that might change their understanding. Daily self-education, for these individuals, revolves around refining and updating their mental models. They are voracious readers not just to accumulate facts, but to encounter new ideas, challenge existing assumptions, and connect patterns across domains. Reading becomes a tool for cognitive expansion, not just knowledge acquisition. Reflection plays a key role as well. After-action reviews, journaling, and deliberate feedback loops allow top performers to debrief their experiences and update their models based on outcomes. They also practice Bayesian updating, which involve adjusting beliefs incrementally as new evidence becomes available. Instead of clinging to outdated assumptions, they modify their worldview in real time. This makes their thinking dynamic and adaptable, qualities that are essential in a world that is constantly changing. Another critical framework is circle of competence, the understanding of one's own limitations. Top performers excel not just because of what they know, but because they are acutely aware of what they don't know. They avoid overconfidence by staying within their circle of competence and gradually expanding it through focused learning. The pursuit of mastery for these individuals is not about being the smartest in the room. It is about building a layered, dynamic, interdisciplinary mental model stack that allows for better perception, prediction, and performance. They understand that most problems are not new. They are variations of recurring patterns. Recognizing those patterns and matching them with the right mental model accelerates insight and action. Mental models are not tools to be admired on a shelf. They are cognitive instruments meant to be practiced, tested, and refined daily. In this way, the top performers don't just act intelligently. They think with intent. They don't just work hard. They think smart. Through consistent daily learning, reflective analysis, and thoughtful application of mental models, they transform how they perceive the world and make decisions that move them consistently toward their goals. Daily self-assessment. Daily self-assessment is an essential tool for anyone committed to lifelong learning and self-education. It transforms the abstract idea of learning every day into a concrete, repeatable practice. At its core, daily self-assessment is about cultivating awareness of what you've done, what you've learned, how you've behaved, and where you're going. It's a feedback loop that becomes more refined over time, helping you not only retain knowledge, but apply it with greater insight and precision. Creating this feedback loop begins with the mindset that every day is a learning opportunity. Whether you read a new book, experimented with a skill, or simply had a conversation that shifted your perspective, every interaction contains potential lessons. But these lessons can easily fade or go unrecognized unless they are captured and examined. This is where reflection becomes vital. Carving out even a short window at the end of the day to think critically about your experiences creates the space needed for deeper understanding. What worked? What didn't? What challenged your assumptions? These questions encourage you to recognize both your successes and your blind spots. The act of self-assessment also fosters humility and curiosity. It shifts the focus from performance to progress. Rather than judging yourself harshly for what you didn't do, it invites a constructive evaluation of how to improve. This creates a more sustainable form of motivation, one that is internally driven rather than dependent on external validation. In this way, daily self-assessment becomes a mechanism for self-coaching. You become both the student and the teacher, analyzing your day not to criticize but to calibrate. An important dimension of this practice is the ability to course-correct in real time. Learning doesn't always follow a linear trajectory, and the feedback loop allows for agile adjustments. Perhaps you noticed that your energy was low during the time you usually study. Acknowledging this gives you the data needed to tweak your schedule or explore techniques for better focus. Maybe a conversation revealed a gap in your knowledge. This is not a failure, but a flag indicating where to direct your attention next. These small, daily recalibrations compound into significant shifts in understanding and effectiveness over time. Another benefit of daily self-assessment is that it sharpens your metacognition, your awareness of how you think and learn. You begin to see patterns in your behavior, identify cognitive biases, and refine your strategies for acquiring and applying knowledge. This makes future learning more efficient and relevant. For example, if you notice that you retain information better when you teach it to someone else, you might begin to incorporate teaching into your routine as a deliberate learning tool. This practice builds resilience and a growth-oriented identity. Instead of seeing setbacks as signs of inadequacy, you come to view them as data points in your developmental journey. This reframing can have a profound impact on your confidence and ability to persevere through challenges. Over time, the daily act of evaluating and adjusting becomes not just a practice, but a philosophy, a way of living that prioritizes intentional growth. Incorporating a journal can make this process more tangible. Writing down your reflections each day solidifies your insights, gives you a record of progress, and allows you to observe trends over weeks or months. It turns the abstract process of self-assessment into a visible archive of your learning life. Over time, reviewing these entries can be incredibly motivating and revealing. You start to see how much you've grown, what strategies have served you well, and how your thinking has evolved. Chapter 2. Building your personal education system. Educating yourself daily is one of the most empowering commitments you can make in life. It doesn't require formal classrooms or structured curriculums. It simply demands a willingness to grow, curiosity about the world, and consistency in your habits. The process of self-education is deeply enriched by 5 foundational pillars: reading, listening, watching, doing, and teaching. These learning modes are interdependent, and when they are all practiced regularly, they form a holistic approach to continuous personal and intellectual development. Reading is perhaps the most timeless and accessible form of learning. It allows you to engage with the minds of great thinkers across history, to understand different perspectives, and to build knowledge layer by layer. Whether it's books, articles, research papers, or even well-curated newsletters, reading stretches your cognitive abilities and deepens your understanding of complex subjects. It's a solitary activity, yes, but it connects you with vast networks of thought. In reading, you train your focus and sharpen your critical thinking, and you develop the habit of contemplation. It's an immersive experience that allows you to digest information at your own pace, revisit complex passages, and internalize wisdom over time. Listening offers a complementary dimension to learning, opening the door to oral knowledge and conversational insight. Podcasts, audiobooks, lectures, interviews, and conversations with knowledgeable individuals all fall into this category. Listening helps you develop auditory processing skills, empathy, and an appreciation for tone, nuance, and rhythm in communication. When you actively listen, you become more receptive to the subtleties of ideas and more capable of interpreting not just what is said, but how it's said. Listening is also especially effective in situations where multitasking is necessary, turning commutes, chores, or exercise routines into valuable learning sessions. Watching brings learning into a more visual and often more emotionally resonant realm. Documentaries, instructional videos, webinars, and online courses allow you to observe phenomena, demonstrations, and human behavior in real time or through visual storytelling. Watching enhances your ability to understand concepts that are hard to grasp through text or sound alone. It bridges the abstract with the concrete, showing how ideas play out in practice. Through visual learning, you can see patterns, observe techniques, and experience simulated environments that deepen your engagement and retention. This pillar of learning is especially powerful in a world dominated by multimedia, where visual fluency is as important as verbal literacy. Doing is the transformative stage where passive understanding becomes active mastery. Practical application of knowledge through experimentation, practice, and implementation consolidates what you've learned. This is where skills are forged through trial and error, repetition, feedback, and adaptation. Whether you're coding, writing, painting, conducting experiments, building a project, or simply applying new ideas to real-world challenges, doing transforms theory into tangible skill. It's where learning becomes embodied. This experiential learning cultivates resilience, problem-solving, and creativity, teaching you lessons that no book or video could fully convey. Teaching completes the cycle of learning by compelling you to articulate and transfer your knowledge to others. This process requires a deep level of comprehension. When you teach, you're forced to break down concepts, anticipate questions, and clarify ambiguities, often revealing the limits or gaps in your own understanding. Explaining something to another person refines your mastery and helps solidify the information in your own memory. Teaching also reinforces accountability in your learning journey and contributes to a culture of shared growth. Whether you're tutoring, mentoring, writing blogs, or simply engaging in intellectual discussions, teaching turns you from a passive learner into an active contributor in the exchange of ideas. When these 5 learning pillars, reading, listening, watching, doing, and teaching, are integrated into your daily life, education becomes not just a task, but a lifestyle. Each pillar enhances and reinforces the others. Reading builds a foundation of knowledge. Listening offers diversity in voice and perspective. Watching brings clarity through visual context. Doing ingrains concepts through action, and teaching tests and strengthens your understanding through communication. Together, they create a robust, multidimensional approach to self-education that can adapt to your goals, interests, and pace. The beauty of these learning pillars lies in their accessibility and flexibility. In today's world, there are endless resources at your fingertips to engage with each of them. The key is not to treat them as separate compartments, but as complementary paths to deeper insight. When you commit to these practices daily, even in small doses, you cultivate a mindset that is curious, resilient, and ever-evolving. Lifelong learning is not just about acquiring knowledge, but about continually becoming a more capable, thoughtful, and connected version of yourself. Curating your curriculum. Curating your curriculum is an essential step in the journey of educating yourself daily. When you take ownership of what you learn, deliberately choosing a few key domains for focused mastery, you set yourself up for deep, meaningful growth instead of shallow skimming across many topics. The idea is not to overwhelm your mind with an endless buffet of knowledge, but rather to create a tailored learning experience that aligns with your goals, interests, and life context. Choosing 3 to 5 domains gives you enough breadth to keep things stimulating, yet enough focus to gain true expertise in each area. These domains become your pillars, anchors that support your intellectual development over time. You might think of them as a personal constellation of knowledge, where each star represents a field that feeds your curiosity and sharpens your skills. Instead of randomly jumping from one topic to another, you build a scaffold approach to learning, where insights from one domain can often enrich your understanding of another. The process starts with introspection, asking yourself what areas matter most to your current aspirations, challenges, or passions. Are you drawn toward mastering communication because you want to become a better storyteller or leader? Or perhaps you are fascinated by technology, eager to grasp the fundamentals of coding, AI, or data analysis to future-proof your career. Maybe wellness and psychology captivate you because you want to better understand human behavior and nurture your mental and emotional health. Whatever it is, narrowing your focus lets you invest your time and energy wisely. Once your domains are chosen, you cultivate a daily habit of immersion. This doesn't mean you need hours every day, but rather consistent, purposeful engagement. Reading deeply in these areas, listening to podcasts, watching lectures, practicing skills, and reflecting on what you've absorbed all contribute to a richer, more layered mastery. Over weeks and months, you'll notice how these focused learnings begin to coalesce into a framework of understanding that feels uniquely yours. There is also an important psychological advantage in this approach. By committing to a few domains, you develop a sense of progress and competence that can be highly motivating. You avoid the frustration that often comes from jumping across many unrelated topics without tangible growth. Instead, your curated curriculum builds momentum, and your confidence grows as you see your knowledge deepen and your abilities sharpen. Your chosen domains should remain dynamic and flexible. As you evolve, so too should your curriculum. Periodic reflection helps you reassess whether a domain still serves your growth or if you're ready to pivot toward new interests or emerging needs. This fluidity keeps your learning journey vibrant and responsive rather than rigid and stale. Curating your curriculum by selecting 3 to 5 focused domains transforms self-education from a vague ambition into a purposeful, strategic practice. It empowers you to create a personalized, sustainable learning path that enriches your mind, nurtures your passions, and equips you with the skills and insights to navigate an ever-changing world. Learning Stack Tools. Learning Stack Tools encompass a broad spectrum of apps, platforms, and methods that collectively support the goal of educating yourself daily in a structured and consistent manner. In the modern age, where information is abundant but time and focus are limited, having a well-curated set of learning resources and habits can dramatically improve one's ability to absorb knowledge continuously. At the heart of any effective learning stack is the integration of digital applications designed to foster engagement and retention. Apps such as language learning platforms like Duolingo or Babbel create micro-learning opportunities by breaking down complex subjects into daily bite-sized lessons that are easy to complete and track. These apps utilize gamification techniques, reminders, and progress tracking to encourage habitual study, which is crucial for consistent learning. Similarly, platforms like Coursera, Udemy, or Khan Academy provide structured courses from experts and institutions worldwide, making specialized knowledge accessible. The ability to schedule these lessons according to personal availability means learners can fit education into even the busiest routines, promoting regular engagement. Beyond course platforms, knowledge management tools like Notion, Evernote, or Rome Research help learners organize information in meaningful ways. These tools enable the capturing, connecting, and revisiting of ideas or concepts, facilitating deeper understanding through active note-taking and reflection. The process of converting passive learning into active knowledge creation strengthens memory retention and encourages a growth mindset, essential for lifelong learning. Incorporating spaced repetition systems, such as Anki or Quizlet, into a learning routine leverages cognitive science to enhance memory. These tools remind learners of material at strategically spaced intervals, making forgetting less likely and ensuring knowledge moves from short-term to long-term memory. Using such methods regularly builds consistency, as learners receive daily prompts that foster a disciplined approach to study. Social and community-driven platforms also play a critical role. Learning with peers through discussion forums, study groups, or communities on Reddit, Discord, or specialized learning sites provides motivation, accountability, and diverse perspectives. The interaction not only keeps learners engaged, but also enhances understanding by exposing them to different viewpoints and clarifications. Methods to stay consistent with these tools are equally important. Setting clear goals, whether short-term or long-term, anchors the learning process. Regular scheduling, for instance, dedicating specific times of the day to learning activities, creates a routine that transforms education from sporadic activity into a daily habit. Employing techniques like the Pomodoro method can maintain focus during study sessions, preventing burnout and sustaining interest. Reflection and self-assessment help maintain progress by allowing learners to evaluate their understanding and adjust strategies. Journaling about what has been learned or teaching concepts to others are powerful methods to solidify knowledge. This reflective practice ensures that learning is not only consistent, but also meaningful. The integration of multimedia learning, videos, podcasts, articles, and interactive simulations caters to different learning styles and keeps the educational experience fresh and engaging. Apps like Audible or podcast platforms make it possible to learn passively during commutes or chores, turning otherwise idle time into valuable learning moments. A well-rounded learning stack is built on the thoughtful selection of tools and methods that reinforce each other. The seamless blending of apps for structured study, tools for organization and retention, social interaction for accountability, and diverse content formats sustains motivation and cultivates the discipline necessary for daily education. This comprehensive approach helps transform learning from a task into a rewarding lifestyle, enabling continuous intellectual growth and adaptation in an ever-changing world. Microlearning and compounding knowledge. Microlearning and the concept of compounding knowledge have revolutionized the way we think about education and self-improvement. In a world overflowing with information and constant distractions, the traditional approach of dedicating long, infrequent blocks of time to learning is increasingly being challenged by a more dynamic and manageable method. Learning in short, focused bursts every day. This approach not only fits better with busy lifestyles, but also leverages the way our brains absorb and retain information most effectively. Microlearning refers to breaking down educational content into small, digestible units that can be completed in a short time, often ranging from a few minutes to half an hour. This method contrasts sharply with the conventional, marathon-style sessions that attempt to cover large amounts of material in one sitting. While sitting down for 8 hours once a week might seem productive on the surface, it often leads to cognitive overload, fatigue, and a decline in attention and retention. Our brains are not designed to process vast amounts of new information all at once. They function optimally when learning is spaced out and reinforced over time. When you dedicate around 30 minutes a day to learning, you're essentially allowing your brain to engage with material regularly without overwhelming it. This daily engagement means you can build a habit, and habits are powerful because they make consistent behavior easier and more automatic over time. This consistency leads to the compounding effect. Much like investing money, small amounts of knowledge gathered every day grow exponentially. Each day's learning builds upon the previous day's, strengthening neural pathways and deepening understanding. Over weeks and months, this results in substantial cumulative knowledge that feels more integrated and applicable. The distributed practice involved in daily microlearning sessions enhances long-term retention. Spacing out learning helps counteract the forgetting curve, a natural tendency for us to forget information if it isn't reviewed. When you learn a little each day, your brain repeatedly retrieves and applies new concepts, which reinforces memory and encourages deeper comprehension. This is far more effective than cramming all the information in a single sitting and then waiting days before revisiting it, which often leads to rapid decay of what was learned. Microlearning also encourages adaptability and responsiveness to your evolving interests and needs. Because the sessions are brief and manageable, it's easier to adjust the topics or methods based on what you find most engaging or relevant. This can keep motivation high, as you're not locked into a rigid schedule that might feel overwhelming or monotonous. Instead, learning becomes a natural part of your daily routine, something you look forward to rather than dread. In addition to improving knowledge retention and habit formation, daily learning in short bursts allows for better application of what you learn. When you absorb information gradually, you have more opportunities to reflect on it and integrate it into your existing knowledge base. This reflection period is crucial. It turns raw information into practical wisdom. You're more likely to experiment with new ideas in real life, ask questions, and seek connections, all of which deepen your mastery and creativity. In a fast-paced world where the value of knowledge can quickly shift due to technological or societal changes, microlearning provides agility. By committing to learning daily, you remain continuously updated and better prepared to pivot or adapt to new challenges. It transforms education from a one-time event into an ongoing, evolving process, better suited to the demands of modern life. In contrast, when learning is restricted to a single long session each week, the risk of procrastination and burnout increases. It's easy to put off that massive chunk of study until the last minute, leading to rushed and shallow engagement with the material. Even when the time is spent, fatigue and diminishing focus mean much of what is absorbed will not be retained or fully understood. The result is often frustration and a feeling that the effort didn't pay off, which can discourage future attempts at learning. The power of microlearning and the compounding effect of daily knowledge acquisition lie in their synergy with human cognitive processes and lifestyle demands. Learning for 30 minutes a day, consistently, allows you to harness the natural rhythms of memory and motivation. It makes education sustainable, efficient, and deeply rewarding, proving that steady, incremental effort far outperforms occasional intense bursts when it comes to mastering new skills or broadening your understanding of the world. This approach transforms the act of educating yourself from a daunting obligation into an enriching and empowering daily ritual. Chapter 3. Learn what matters most. Meta-learning, often described as learning how to learn, is a powerful concept that can transform the way we approach education and self-improvement. At its core, meta-learning is about understanding the processes behind acquiring new skills and knowledge, enabling you to optimize those processes so that you can learn anything faster and more effectively. This approach is especially valuable in a world where the pace of change is rapid, and continuous self-education is not just beneficial but essential. To begin with, meta-learning encourages a shift in perspective. Instead of focusing solely on the content you want to learn, it urges you to reflect on the methods you use to learn. This reflection can help you identify what techniques work best for you personally, whether that's visual aids, spaced repetition, hands-on practice, or discussion, and discard methods that yield less benefit. By becoming aware of your own learning style and habits, you gain greater control over your educational journey. Another crucial aspect of meta-learning involves cultivating a growth mindset. When you see intelligence and skill as malleable rather than fixed traits, you're more willing to embrace challenges and learn from mistakes. This mindset fuels persistence and resilience, which are vital when tackling complex or unfamiliar subjects. It also helps reduce the fear of failure, which can often hinder progress. Meta-learning also emphasizes the importance of deliberate practice. This means focusing on tasks just beyond your current abilities and consistently pushing the boundaries of your comfort zone. Rather than passively consuming information, you actively engage with material through problem solving, teaching others, or applying knowledge in real-world contexts. Such active involvement enhances retention and deepens understanding, making learning more efficient. In addition to practicing effectively, managing your cognitive resources is a key part of meta-learning. Techniques like chunking information into manageable units, employing mnemonic devices, and taking regular breaks to avoid cognitive overload can dramatically improve your capacity to absorb and recall information. Understanding how your brain processes and stores information empowers you to design study sessions that align with your mental rhythms and optimize long-term retention. The environment in which you learn also plays a significant role. Meta-learning includes the ability to create or seek out environments conducive to focus and curiosity. Minimizing distractions, organizing your study space, and surrounding yourself with supportive peers or mentors can enhance motivation and facilitate deeper engagement with material. Importantly, meta-learning encourages a habit of continuous self-assessment and adjustment. By regularly reviewing your progress and reflecting on your learning strategies, you can identify areas of improvement and tweak your approach accordingly. This feedback loop ensures that your learning process remains dynamic and adaptive rather than static and rigid. Incorporating meta-learning into your daily routine fosters a lifelong habit of self-education. Instead of waiting for formal instruction or relying solely on external sources, you become proactive in acquiring new knowledge. This autonomy boosts confidence and opens doors to diverse fields of interest, allowing you to pivot quickly as opportunities or passions evolve. Meta-learning is not just about efficiency, but also about deeper understanding. When you learn how to learn, you develop skills that transcend specific subjects. You become adept at critical thinking, problem solving, and synthesizing information, which are valuable across all domains. This broader intellectual agility is particularly useful in today's interdisciplinary world, where challenges often require integrating knowledge from multiple fields. Meta-learning is a skill that multiplies the impact of every minute spent studying or practicing. It transforms the act of learning into a strategic, self-aware process that continually refines itself. By dedicating time each day to improve how you learn, you unlock a powerful engine for personal growth that fuels both immediate progress and long-term mastery. Learning the psychology of persuasion and influence. Understanding power isn't just about manipulation or control. It's about mastering human nature, social dynamics, and the subtle currents that guide how people think and behave. At its core, the laws of power reveal patterns of interaction that have shaped societies, leadership, and personal relationships throughout history. When you embark on this learning path, you quickly discover that power is psychological. It hinges on perception as much as reality. People are influenced more by what they believe to be true than by what is objectively true. This insight opens the door to understanding how authority and credibility are constructed and maintained. For instance, confidence, tone of voice, body language, and even silence communicate power, often more than words. Recognizing this allows you to consciously shape your presence in any setting, subtly steering conversations and decisions in your favor without overt force. Persuasion builds on psychology by applying it strategically. It's about crafting messages and environments that resonate with people's desires, fears, and motivations. When you educate yourself on persuasion, you start to see everyday interactions, sales pitches, negotiations, even casual conversations, as opportunities to influence outcomes positively. It's the art of aligning your goals with the values and needs of others so that they feel genuinely motivated to act in ways that benefit both parties. This is the ethical heart of influence, distinguishing it from mere manipulation. Influence is the outward expression of power and persuasion combined. It's the ability to affect behavior and attitudes indirectly, often without others even realizing it. Learning how influence works involves studying social proof, reciprocity, commitment, and consistency, all of which are rooted in human psychology. Understanding these principles helps you build lasting relationships and alliances that are based on mutual respect and benefit. Influence, then, is not a one-time tactic, but a continuous process of connection and trust building. Daily self-education in these areas means immersing yourself in diverse disciplines, reading historical accounts of influential figures, analyzing contemporary leaders, exploring psychological research, and practicing social skills in real life. It's about developing awareness of your own strengths and weaknesses, as well as those of the people around you. Through reflection and experience, you begin to internalize the subtle mechanisms of power and influence, making them part of your natural interaction style. Learning the laws of power encourages a mindset shift. You start to see challenges as opportunities to exercise patience, creativity, and strategic thinking rather than confrontations to win or lose. You appreciate the nuance in human behavior, realizing that power dynamics are fluid and context-dependent. This humility and adaptability make your influence more sustainable and respected. Educating yourself daily on the laws of power, psychology, persuasion, and influence empowers you to navigate life's complexities with greater ease and effectiveness. It cultivates emotional intelligence, sharpens critical thinking, and enhances communication skills. By understanding and practicing these principles, you unlock the potential to inspire, lead, and create positive change, not just for yourself, but for the communities and networks you engage with. This ongoing process of learning is not about dominance, but about mastering the art of meaningful impact in an interconnected world. Wealth, health, and relationships. Wealth, health, and relationships form the foundational pillars of a fulfilling and prosperous life. These three elements function as compounding levers, meaning improvements in one area often accelerate growth and positive outcomes in the others, creating a powerful cycle of personal development. When viewed through the lens of educating yourself daily, These levers become even more dynamic and impactful, as continuous learning enables you to maximize the potential within each. Starting with wealth, it extends far beyond just financial assets. True wealth includes knowledge, skills, and habits that generate and sustain income over time. Daily education, whether through reading, listening to podcasts, or engaging in conversations with mentors, enriches your understanding of money management, investing, and entrepreneurship. This ongoing self-education helps you make smarter decisions, avoid costly mistakes, and seize opportunities that compound into greater financial security. The beauty of wealth as a compounding lever lies in its ability to multiply your resources when nurtured consistently, just like how reinvesting earnings grows capital exponentially. Health, on the other hand, is the engine that fuels your capacity to enjoy and pursue all other aspects of life. Without good physical and mental well-being, wealth and relationships can lose their meaning or become more difficult to sustain. Educating yourself daily about nutrition, exercise, stress management, and mental health practices cultivates habits that build resilience and vitality. This knowledge empowers you to listen to your body, prevent illness, and maintain energy levels that allow for sustained productivity and happiness. Just as wealth compounds with smart investments, health compounds with consistent, mindful choices, each positive action reinforcing the next, creating a stronger foundation for a long and vibrant life. Relationships act as the social and emotional capital that deeply influences your quality of life. Meaningful connections with family, friends, colleagues, and even casual acquaintances offer support, collaboration, and joy. The way you nurture these relationships can be elevated through daily education about communication skills, emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, and empathy. As you grow in your understanding of human behavior and effective interaction, you create stronger bonds that open doors to opportunities, companionship, and a sense of belonging. This social compounding effect means that investing time and energy into relationships today leads to richer, more supportive networks tomorrow, enhancing every dimension of your life. The interplay between these three levers is where the magic happens. A well-educated mind ensures you manage your wealth wisely, care for your health with intention, and cultivate relationships with depth and authenticity. Conversely, improvements in one area often support growth in others. For instance, good health enables you to work and create wealth more effectively, while strong relationships provide emotional stability that can improve both mental and physical health. Financial security reduces stress, allowing for better self-care and more quality time with loved ones. This interconnection highlights why daily education about all three is essential. It keeps you informed, adaptable, and prepared to make decisions that reinforce these pillars in harmony. Committing to educating yourself daily is the catalyst that activates these life levers. It moves you from passive existence into proactive creation of your future. Every new insight, skill, or perspective builds upon the last, amplifying your ability to improve your wealth, health, and relationships in meaningful ways. This continuous growth mindset creates momentum, turning small daily efforts into monumental life shifts over time. In essence, the three compounding life levers, wealth, health, and relationships, are the core areas where focused, consistent learning delivers profound returns. They are interconnected gears in the machinery of a fulfilling life, and by educating yourself daily, you ensure that each gear turns smoothly, propelling you forward toward greater happiness, success, and well-being. The investment you make in your knowledge today compounds just like your financial investments or healthy habits, setting the stage for a richer and more balanced life tomorrow. Learning to think, not just know. The distinction between knowing and thinking is subtle yet profound. Knowing often refers to having information stored, facts, figures, dates, or processes memorized. Thinking, on the other hand, is an active process. It involves engaging with that information, questioning it, breaking it down, and reconstructing it to form new insights or solve problems. When you center your learning on thinking, you are training your mind to become a tool of analysis and creativity rather than a passive repository. This approach fosters what is often called critical thinking, the ability to evaluate information objectively, consider multiple perspectives, and make reasoned judgments free from bias or emotion. Critical thinking is not something that emerges spontaneously from just reading or listening. It is cultivated through deliberate practice. This practice involves asking why things are the way they are, seeking evidence, and considering alternative explanations before accepting a conclusion. It requires curiosity and a willingness to admit that your current understanding might be incomplete or even incorrect. Delving into critical thinking naturally brings you to the concept of first principles thinking. This method involves breaking down complex problems into their most fundamental truths or elements, rather than relying on analogy or conventional wisdom. By doing so, you strip away assumptions and inherited knowledge that might cloud your judgment. It's about getting back to the core building blocks of an issue and reasoning upward from there. Entrepreneurs and innovators frequently use this approach to challenge the status quo, often uncovering novel solutions where others see only obstacles. Logic underpins both critical thinking and first principles reasoning. It provides the structure for valid argumentation and the rigorous assessment of ideas. Logic teaches you how to follow a chain of thought from premises to conclusion without falling into fallacies or contradictions. It allows you to distinguish between sound reasoning and flawed reasoning, which is essential in a world overflowing with information, some reliable, some misleading. When your thinking is grounded in logical principles, you become less susceptible to emotional manipulation, cognitive biases, or groupthink. Educating yourself daily through these lenses means developing a mindset that prioritizes depth over breadth. It's not about memorizing more facts each day, but about nurturing the skill to think clearly, deeply, and independently. This mindset encourages continuous questioning, not just of others, but of your own beliefs. It pushes you to connect disparate ideas, identify patterns, and synthesize new perspectives. Over time, this reflective practice builds intellectual resilience and adaptability, qualities indispensable in an ever-changing world. Adopting critical thinking, first principles, and logic in your daily education fosters intellectual humility. It's a recognition that learning is a lifelong journey, and that certainty is often elusive. This humility makes you open to new information and better prepared to revise your thinking as evidence accumulates. It turns education into an active dialogue rather than a one-way intake of facts, making each day a chance to refine your understanding and grow wiser. Learning to think rather than just to know transforms the process of self-education from a passive task into an empowering journey. It equips you not only with knowledge, but with the capability to use that knowledge effectively, to innovate, solve problems creatively, and make decisions that stand up to scrutiny. This kind of education enriches not only your mind, but also your ability to engage meaningfully with the world around you. Avoiding intellectual junk food. Avoiding intellectual junk food in today's world is essential to maintaining a healthy, well-nourished mind. Just as our bodies crave and sometimes fall victim to fast food and empty calories, our minds can easily be overwhelmed by a flood of low-quality, distracting, or trivial information. In the digital age, information is abundant and incessant, flowing constantly through social media, news outlets, emails, and countless websites. Without deliberate filtering, this barrage can lead to what might be called intellectual obesity, a mind clogged with useless facts, shallow opinions, and sensationalist noise that adds little real value to our understanding or growth. To educate yourself daily in a meaningful way, it's important to recognize the difference between consumption and nourishment. True learning involves engaging with ideas that challenge, expand, or deepen your understanding rather than simply skimming the surface of many topics without retention or insight. When you consume information just to fill time or distract yourself, you might end up with a false sense of being informed while actually being mentally scattered and unfocused. One key approach to filtering the overload of information is cultivating intentionality. This means setting clear intentions about what you want to learn or explore. Instead of passively scrolling through endless feeds or clicking on sensational headlines, you decide in advance which subjects or questions deserve your attention. This intentional mindset helps steer you towards sources that are trustworthy, well-reasoned, and insightful. You begin to value quality over quantity, favoring depth and nuance instead of instant gratification or sensationalism. It's also critical to develop habits that support critical thinking and reflection. When faced with new information, pause to consider its source, purpose, and evidence. Ask yourself if the information is well-founded or merely opinion, whether it offers something new or just repeats what you already know, and whether it aligns with or challenges your existing beliefs in constructive ways. This reflective practice helps protect your mind from the passive acceptance of superficial content and encourages deeper engagement. Another essential part of avoiding intellectual junk food is creating boundaries around your information intake. This might mean limiting exposure to social media or news apps, scheduling specific times for reading or study, and creating a curated environment where distractions are minimized. Much like a dietitian recommends avoiding certain foods to maintain physical health, consciously avoiding clickbait, gossip, or emotionally charged but unproductive content supports mental clarity and focus. Engaging with thoughtfully chosen long-form content can also be a remedy against the bite-sized, shallow consumption habits promoted by many digital platforms. Books, in-depth articles, documentaries, and lectures allow for sustained attention and richer comprehension. They provide context, background, and complexity that quick snippets rarely capture, and immersing yourself in such content can foster intellectual stamina and curiosity. It's important to remember that educating yourself daily is not about consuming as much information as possible, but about meaningful growth. This growth is nourished when you integrate new insights into your worldview, question assumptions, and apply knowledge in real life. Journaling, discussing ideas with others, or teaching what you've learned can help solidify understanding and make the learning process active rather than passive. Emotional awareness plays a subtle but significant role in filtering information. Recognizing when certain content triggers frustration, anxiety, or anger can be a signal that it's not serving your intellectual well-being. Choosing to step back and seek sources that inspire, uplift, or motivate can transform your learning experience from draining to energizing. Chapter 4. From Knowledge to Mastery. The output rule is a powerful concept rooted in the idea that true learning goes beyond passive intake of information. It requires active creation, expression, or application of what one has absorbed. When we educate ourselves daily, whether through reading, watching, listening, or exploring, the process does not reach its full potential until we translate that knowledge into some form of output. This might take the shape of teaching others, writing about what we've learned, or building something tangible from those ideas. Teaching is one of the most effective ways to solidify knowledge because it forces us to organize our thoughts coherently and communicate them clearly. When you teach, you engage with the material at a deeper level, anticipating questions, explaining concepts in your own words, and reinforcing your understanding through dialogue. It turns learning into a social and interactive experience, often uncovering gaps in your comprehension that you might not notice when studying alone. Moreover, teaching isn't limited to formal classrooms. It can be as simple as sharing insights with a friend, participating in forums, or creating educational content online. This outward expression helps convert abstract ideas into concrete knowledge. Writing is another profound form of output that transforms learning. When you write, you distill and structure your thoughts, often refining and clarifying your understanding in the process. The act of putting ideas into words demands precision and forces you to reflect on the material from various angles. Writing can be done through blogs, journals, articles, or even social media posts, and each medium offers a unique way to engage with the content. Writing creates a permanent record of your learning journey, which you can revisit, revise, and build upon. It also invites feedback and conversation, creating a loop that further deepens your insight. Building, whether it's creating projects, coding applications, crafting art, or designing solutions, is the most tangible way to manifest learning. This approach translates abstract knowledge into practical skills and real-world results. When you build, you encounter challenges that require problem-solving and innovation, compelling you to apply what you've learned dynamically. This hands-on involvement cements your understanding and often leads to new discoveries and skills that pure theoretical learning might miss. The process of creation also nurtures a sense of accomplishment and motivation to continue learning. Incorporating the output rule into daily self-education transforms passive consumption into active mastery. It bridges the gap between knowing and doing, making knowledge useful and meaningful. It challenges you to move beyond memorization and encourages critical thinking, creativity, and communication. Output acts as a feedback loop that reveals areas needing improvement and sparks new curiosity. By consistently teaching, writing, or building what you learn, you create a cycle of continuous growth that deepens your expertise and confidence. This cycle not only reinforces existing knowledge, but also fosters the ability to adapt and innovate in an ever-changing world. The output rule embodies the philosophy that learning is a dynamic and participatory process. It reminds us that the goal of education is not just to accumulate facts, but to transform those facts into wisdom and capability. When you commit to producing work based on your learning, you honor the effort you put into studying and maximize the return on your investment of time and energy. This approach to self-education empowers you to become a creator and contributor, rather than a mere consumer of information. Active recall, spaced repetition, and mastery loops. When it comes to educating yourself daily, there are a few foundational techniques that can profoundly transform how effectively you learn and retain information over time. Among these, active recall, spaced repetition, and mastery loops stand out as some of the most powerful strategies, each complementing the others to create a robust and sustainable learning process. Active recall is a learning method centered around the act of actively stimulating your memory during study sessions rather than passively reviewing notes or rereading textbooks. Instead of simply looking at information, you challenge yourself to retrieve it from memory. This can be done by testing yourself, answering questions, or even trying to explain concepts aloud without referring to your materials. The science behind active recall is rooted in the retrieval practice effect, which shows that the process of pulling information from your memory strengthens the neural connections related to that knowledge. Over time, this makes the memory more durable and easier to access. Engaging with material in this way forces your brain to work harder, which paradoxically enhances learning and retention, making active recall far more effective than passive study techniques. Spaced repetition complements active recall by leveraging the way our brains naturally forget over time. The concept here involves spacing out review sessions of the same material at increasing intervals. When you first learn something, you review it soon after, say the next day, but as you continue to recall it successfully, the gaps between review sessions grow longer, perhaps moving to a week, then a month, and so forth. This pattern exploits the spacing effect, a cognitive phenomenon where learning is more effective when study sessions are spread out rather than crammed together. Spaced repetition systems often use algorithms to predict the optimal timing for each review, which ensures that you reinforce your knowledge just as it's about to fade. This method significantly reduces the total study time needed while dramatically increasing long-term retention. Mastery loops tie these two concepts together within a broader framework of continuous improvement and deliberate practice. They are cyclical processes that involve setting clear learning goals, actively engaging with the material through recall and spaced repetition, and then evaluating your understanding to identify gaps or weaknesses. After assessing your mastery, you adjust your study approach accordingly and repeat the cycle. The loop encourages incremental progress rather than expecting perfection from the outset. Mastery loops emphasize the importance of feedback and reflection, ensuring that your study is not only consistent but also adaptive. By embracing the idea of mastery loops, you transform learning from static task into a dynamic journey, where each cycle deepens your understanding and skills. When you combine these techniques, active recall pushing you to retrieve knowledge, spaced repetition ensuring that your memory stays fresh over time, and mastery loops providing a structured way to iterate and improve, you create a learning system that can be maintained daily with high efficiency. This approach empowers you to take control of your education, making it intentional, measurable, and sustainable. As you adopt these methods, your ability to learn complex subjects or new skills accelerates, turning daily study into a powerful habit that compounds over time, ultimately leading to deep expertise and lasting knowledge. Project-based learning. Project-based learning, PBL, stands as a powerful educational approach that significantly enhances retention by anchoring knowledge in real-world application. Unlike traditional learning methods that often rely heavily on passive absorption through lectures or rote memorization, PBL immerses learners in active, meaningful experiences where they engage directly with problems, challenges, or projects that mirror authentic situations. This shift from abstract to concrete learning fosters a deeper connection between the learner and the subject matter, fundamentally altering how knowledge is processed and remembered. At the heart of why real-world application multiplies retention is the concept of contextual learning. When learners apply concepts to tangible problems or create something meaningful, the information ceases to be just theoretical. Instead, it becomes embedded within a practical framework that the brain can easily retrieve. Human memory thrives on associations. When a piece of information is linked to sensory experiences, emotions, or purposeful tasks, it forms stronger neural pathways. For example, a student who builds a model, codes an app, or writes a business plan is not only learning facts but also applying critical thinking, creativity, and problem-solving skills. These processes engage multiple parts of the brain simultaneously, making the learning experience more holistic and durable. Real-world projects often require collaboration, reflection, and iteration, all of which reinforce retention. When learners explain their ideas to peers, defend their decisions, or revise their work based on feedback, they engage in metacognitive activities that help them internalize and transfer knowledge. This is far more effective than passively reviewing notes or hearing information once. The real-world stakes, whether it's creating something that can be used, solving a community issue, or simulating workplace scenarios, add motivation and relevance, which further fuel the learner's commitment and attention. Daily self-education benefits tremendously from this principle because learning isn't isolated to a classroom or a single session. It becomes a continuous, dynamic process. When you approach daily education with a project mindset, you shift from passive intake to active creation. This habit encourages you to seek out problems in your own life, community, or field of interest and address them with fresh knowledge and skills. The iterative nature of projects allows for experimentation, failure, and growth, all of which solidify learning far better than one-off lessons. PBL supports the development of transferable skills that conventional methods might neglect. By engaging with real-world challenges, learners develop adaptability, communication, and self-directed learning abilities. These meta-skills enhance the capacity to learn efficiently in any context, reinforcing the cycle of education in daily life. In this way, the process of learning itself becomes more resilient and self-sustaining. The emotional and social dimensions of real-world application cannot be overlooked either. When learners see the impact of their efforts, whether it's solving a practical problem, helping others, or contributing to a community, they experience a sense of purpose and accomplishment. This emotional engagement acts as a catalyst for deeper learning and longer retention, as human brains are wired to remember experiences with strong emotional content. Project-based learning transforms education from a passive reception of disconnected facts into an active, meaningful, and personally relevant endeavor. It leverages the brain's natural tendencies toward contextual, emotional, and experiential learning, thereby multiplying retention. For anyone invested in educating themselves daily, embracing project-based approaches ensures that learning is not only more effective, but also more enjoyable and sustainable over time. It bridges the gap between knowledge and action, making education a lifelong adventure rather than a static task. Feedback and iteration. Feedback and iteration are fundamental pillars when it comes to continuous self-education and personal growth. In the journey of educating yourself daily, embracing critique and using it constructively can significantly sharpen your edge, pushing you beyond your current limits and helping you evolve in ways that solo effort alone might not achieve. At its core, feedback acts as a mirror, reflecting back insights about your strengths and areas for improvement that you might not be able to perceive from within your own bubble of experience and knowledge. When you actively seek feedback, You open yourself to diverse perspectives. These perspectives provide invaluable clarity on what you might be missing, what assumptions you're holding on to, or where your methods or understanding may be flawed or incomplete. This external input is vital because, without it, learning can become insular and stagnant. Feedback challenges you, and through that challenge, you are prompted to question your own thinking, validate your efforts, or pivot your approach. It acts as a catalyst for deeper reflection and reassessment, which are essential components of meaningful learning. Iteration, on the other hand, is the process that breathes life into the feedback received. It is the deliberate act of taking critiques, analyzing them, and then applying changes to improve your work, habits, or understanding. Through iteration, learning becomes dynamic rather than static. It transforms from a mere accumulation of facts into a cycle of refinement and mastery. Each round of feedback followed by iteration polishes your skills or knowledge base, allowing you to approach challenges with more insight and confidence the next time. One of the most powerful aspects of feedback and iteration is the mindset it cultivates. It encourages humility, recognizing that no matter how much you know, there's always room for growth. It also nurtures resilience, as you learn to welcome criticism not as a personal attack, but as an opportunity to evolve. This shift in perspective turns feedback into a gift rather than a burden, making the process of iteration a natural and rewarding part of daily education. The practical implementation of feedback and iteration in your daily learning routine might take many forms. It could be through discussions with mentors, peers, or communities who can provide honest assessments of your work or ideas. It might involve reflecting on mistakes and successes alike, taking detailed notes on what worked and what didn't, and then actively experimenting with new strategies or adjustments. Over time, this creates a feedback loop where every attempt informs the next, resulting in increasingly refined outcomes. Feedback and iteration do not solely apply to intellectual pursuits. They extend to emotional intelligence, communication skills, physical disciplines, creative endeavors, and virtually every area where improvement is desired. By integrating critique and subsequent refinement into your daily educational practices, you develop a habit of lifelong learning that continuously sharpens your edge in all facets of life. Educating yourself daily through feedback and iteration transforms the learning process from a linear path into a spiral of constant elevation. Each cycle brings you closer to mastery and deeper understanding, cultivating a sharper, more adaptable, and resilient version of yourself. It is through this relentless cycle of critique and improvement that your edge is honed, enabling you to meet new challenges with confidence and grace. Chapter 5. Staying ahead, staying humble. Tracking your personal growth, especially when you're committed to educating yourself daily, is a powerful practice that can fuel motivation and deepen self-awareness. However, it's easy to slip into a mode of obsession where the process becomes more about checking boxes or chasing perfection rather than genuinely appreciating your progress. To maintain a healthy balance, it's important to cultivate a mindful and flexible approach to tracking growth that encourages reflection without pressure. Tracking growth without obsessing begins with shifting your mindset from rigid measurement to thoughtful observation. Instead of demanding immediate, quantifiable outcomes, consider viewing your learning journey as an evolving story. Growth often happens in subtle, almost invisible ways. Ideas germinate, perspectives shift, skills improve incrementally, and these changes might not always show up neatly in daily metrics or test scores. Embracing this nuance allows you to honor progress that isn't easily captured by numbers or lists. One way to gently track your growth is to keep a reflective journal. Writing down what you learn each day, your challenges, your breakthroughs, and even your frustrations creates a personal archive that you can revisit over time. Rather than obsessing over how many pages or entries you complete, focus on the quality of your reflections and what they reveal about your evolving mindset. Journaling becomes less about tallying accomplishments and more about making sense of your journey, helping you notice patterns, shifts in thinking, or areas where curiosity deepens. Another subtle but effective method is to set broad themes or intentions for your learning rather than narrow goals. For example, instead of aiming to master a specific skill within a week, you might intend to cultivate curiosity resilience, or creativity throughout your daily education. This approach invites you to observe growth as it naturally unfolds across different contexts, not just in isolated achievements. It also removes the pressure to perform or achieve immediately, allowing you to appreciate the process itself. Connecting with a community or a mentor can further enrich how you track your progress. Sharing insights, asking questions, and receiving feedback provide external perspectives that highlight growth areas you might overlook. When you're too close to your own learning, it's easy to underestimate your improvements or fixate on setbacks. Engaging with others introduces a supportive mirror, offering encouragement and realistic appraisals that keep obsession at bay. Paying attention to your emotional and mental states can serve as an important barometer for growth that transcends traditional tracking. Noticing how you handle uncertainty, how comfortable you become with complexity, or how your confidence evolves over time signals growth that isn't always measurable by external standards. This internal awareness reminds you that learning is as much about who you become as what you know. It's also valuable to incorporate moments of pause into your routine. Scheduling regular intervals to step back and reflect helps prevent the constant pressure to do more or know more every single day. These pauses are opportunities to celebrate progress, realign your learning with your values, and adjust your approach without judgment. Growth isn't linear, and honoring this reality fosters patience and reduces the urge to obsessively check progress. Importantly, technology can be both a tool and a trap in tracking growth. While apps and trackers can offer helpful summaries or reminders, relying too heavily on them risks turning your learning into a game of scores and streaks. Use digital tools mindfully, ensuring they support your awareness rather than dominate it. The goal is to nurture a sense of curiosity and fulfillment, not to chase validation through numbers or notifications. Tracking growth without obsession is about cultivating a compassionate relationship with yourself as a learner. It's about recognizing that education is a lifelong adventure filled with ebb and flow, discovery, and occasional setbacks. By focusing on reflection, broad intentions, supportive relationships, emotional insight, and mindful pauses, you create a sustainable way to track your growth that empowers and uplifts rather than confines or stresses. This balanced approach honors the depth and richness of your daily learning experience, making the journey as meaningful as the destination. Becoming the person others learn from. Becoming the person others learn from is a journey deeply rooted in the ongoing commitment to educating yourself daily. It transcends the mere accumulation of facts and information, evolving instead into a way of life that embraces curiosity, humility, and a genuine desire to grow. This process begins with cultivating an open mind, one that eagerly absorbs new knowledge from diverse sources and perspectives. When you consistently seek to learn, you position yourself as a living example of intellectual engagement and adaptability, qualities that naturally draw others to you for guidance and inspiration. Educating yourself daily means nurturing a habit of reflection and inquiry. It involves asking questions not just for the sake of knowing, but for truly understanding. This kind of active learning propels you beyond surface-level familiarity and encourages deeper insights. When you develop the ability to connect ideas, think critically, and synthesize information, you become a resource for others who look up to you. Your insights carry weight because they stem from genuine exploration rather than rote memorization or secondhand knowledge. Another critical aspect is vulnerability in learning. Embracing what you do not know and admitting your limitations builds trust and authenticity. People learn best from those who demonstrate honesty about their own struggles and growth, rather than those who pretend to have all the answers. This vulnerability fosters an environment where curiosity is contagious, encouraging others to pursue their own learning journeys without fear of judgment. Consistency is key in this pursuit. Daily self-education is not about grand gestures, but small, intentional acts, reading a few pages, listening to thoughtful podcasts, engaging in meaningful conversations, or simply observing the world with heightened awareness. Over time, these incremental efforts accumulate, transforming your knowledge base and sharpening your wisdom. It's through this steady progress that you become a beacon of learning, someone others naturally seek out to expand their own horizons. Becoming a person others learn from requires more than intellectual growth. Emotional intelligence and interpersonal skills play a vital role. Teaching and sharing knowledge effectively depends on the ability to communicate clearly and empathetically. When you learn how to listen actively and understand different viewpoints, you foster a supportive learning environment. This makes the exchange of ideas richer and more impactful, inspiring others to engage in their own educational development. Living as a learner also means embracing adaptability. The world changes rapidly, and new information constantly reshapes our understanding of it. When you show willingness to update your beliefs and practices based on new evidence, you model intellectual humility and flexibility. This dynamic approach to knowledge reassures others that learning is a lifelong endeavor, not a finite achievement, and encourages them to follow your example.